Hello and welcome to today's Knowledge Hour session. In today's session, we're going to be talking about the let function in Excel. The let function is a pretty new function that was introduced about 2 years ago, was only available in Office 365. The let function is used to define variables within Excel. If you're familiar with variables in DAX expressions using Power BI, let function works similar to that. So it helps you define variables, and then you can recall those variables and work with them in your calculation. What's the essence of let function? The let function helps you to rewrite long formulas in an easy to read manner. It also helps to improve the performance of our calculation. If you have a formula that uses an expression multiple times, for example, you have you're summing a range a couple of times within a formula, it's always advisable to use a let function. So we'll just get right into it, and then I would walk us through some methods or scenarios where the let function comes in handy. So this is how the syntax looks like for the let function. You have the name, then the variable name or the name value. So for example, this name is what you want to give that variable, and then the name of that variable, like if you call it an x, what is the value of the variable? So that's what you give. Maybe x is equal to 5 or something like that. You have this one in square brackets that says name to and name value to, so it's optional. And if you want to declare more than one variable within your calculation, you can do that. Then this calculation now is where you'll be using your variable that you previously declared in name 1 or name 2. So let me just do a quick example on how the let function works. So let's go. We can say something like equal to let. I click on tab. The name one here says what are you giving name, so let me give this variable name A, and the value I say is 5. Then I'm going to declare another variable, and maybe I call it B. And what value am I going to give that variable? I can call it a 4, for example. Then what calculation do I want to perform with these variables I have declared? I can say something like 5 times 4. Sorry, close my bracket and click enter. I know that 5 times 4 is 20, and then I can see it in my function here that the variable I declared as 5 and 4, I've done my calculation for that. So it's as simple as this, but I know that if you can just do 5 times 4 within a cell, you will not need to have a let function. But this just shows us how the let function works in a very simple and straightforward way. So let's get right into it and start. I have this table or array that has the names of pupils or students in my class. It's hypothetical, and then they have their subjects and how much they scored during their in their exams, math up to arts, all the scores for all their subjects, and also the total. So I've done some calculations previously, but I'll prefer us to go through it together so we'll understand where I'm coming from. So I have this if statement that says I want to find the average of their scores, and if the average is within a range, I want to give them their grade from this grade scale here. So let's get right into that, and I'll show us how to use the let function instead of doing something like this, or how the let function can be used in place of using the if. But first of all, let's walk through the if function. So I'll just delete the whole ifs, and then start. So I'm using the ifs because I have multiple criteria that I'm working with. I can also use nested if, but I'm more comfortable with ifs. So the logical test is what we're doing: an average excuse me, of this, right? Sorry. So the value, if true, if the average is greater than 80, I'm using this scale I have here, we should give that person an A. I can use cell referencing in this case. If the value is, come on, the next one is if the average, I can just come to this formula bar and work with it here. So if the, I'll copy it and then paste it again. If the average is greater than 70, I'll give it a B. Greater or equal to 70, pardon me. If the average is greater or equal to 60, I'll give a C. If the average, don't forget your cell referencing. If the average is greater or equal to 50, I'll give a D. I'll give a D. And if the average is greater or equal to 40, I would give an E. And then if it's less than 40, I'll do what? I'll give an F, a sad. Then I close my bracket. So I have this as my answer. So that's how I can just replicate this throughout the whole cell. So I've assigned grades to every person within this within the class. So the next thing we're going to be working on now is the let function, and I want to show us how we can use this also. So recall what we said. The let function just takes this input let. We can use it in the formula bar provided above. So the name here, I'm going to you can give it any random name you like. Remember we used A at the beginning, but here I'm going to give it a grade, and the value of my name is the average of B2 to J4. Yeah, and then my calculation is what I would have. Okay, let me do something. I would have preferred to copy my calculation so I don't have to write it all over again. We have to work smart while working with this. So do it all over again. Equal to let's name, or calling it grade. Then we are doing the average of B2 to J2, right? Then our our calculation is if the average of this is this. So instead of writing this average all over again, we can just refer to the grade that we have declared earlier. So anywhere you see that average, you can see that there's an IntelliSense here that is showing us that we have declared this variable again. See that it's showing X and grade, so it's referring to that variable. So we just replace the name of the variable we declared earlier to grade. Anywhere we see the average, we just put grade. You can as well write out this formula, but I wanted it to be faster. I hope you're all getting this method of using the function, the let function. So this is how it works, and then I say enter. So it's telling me I've not put the second bracket, and it helped me do that. So you have to close the second bracket, because the first bracket is for the ifs function, and the second one is for the let function itself. So you see that we have the same value here. So that's one way of working with let function. We could also use let function for referencing prior names. This is a bit more complex, but it's going to be very easy. I have something similar in the next page. So we still have the same grading system, but now I want to add remarks. I've added these remarks in this small table I have here. So anyone that has an A, we give him an excellent remark, B very good, C good, D fair, E pass, and then F fail. I also have I did some form of validation here that speaks to the remarks here. So what I'm trying to do is that if I want to count the number of people that have an excellent, I should see their values here. So we'll do that together. So before I do that, I would like to use the VLOOKUP to bring in the values of the remarks in this cell here. So equal to VLOOKUP. What value am I looking up? I'm looking at this value from what array. So is this array, and then what's the column index number? In this case is 3, and then what's my range lookup? In this case is 3. And what's my range lookup? I want an exact mark, so I use false and I say enter. So anywhere there's C, you see good and whatnot. So if I drag this down, oh, so sorry about that. Don't forget your cell referencing when you are working with with functions in Excel. So now I've corrected that cell referencing, and then we can see for each grade we have their remarks. So I'll delete this function here, and then we'll do a count ifs to match these criteria here. So anytime we pick any of these, we should count how many people have an excellent remark, or how many people have very good, how many people have good, and whatnot. So I'll just start we're going to use the count if formula to determine how many people have scored good, how many people have the very good remarks, and whatnot. So count if the range is this range that has the remarks, and the criteria is this cell that has this data validation with all the options of the remarks. So I just do cell referencing for that, and yes, so I can see that 32 students had good remarks. I can see that for very good, 10 students had very good. Then for fair, I have 6 people that did fairly. I don't have anybody that failed outrightly. Just had 1 student who passed and 1 student who did excellently well, very good, and then good. So it's like most of the class in this case are in the had C's. We have more C's than any other grade. So that's how we use the sum if function here. So we're going to do the same calculation using the let function. So I'll just do that in a cell over here. I will say equal to let. Now I'm going to have to name my range. Let me just call it range, and then the value of my range is the range here. So you can see that you can give your you can name your value either it could be a formula, it could be an array, it could be boolean, it could be whatever. So comma, where's my function? Okay, I'll just lock this. I'll do cell referencing for this so it doesn't spill. Then I'm going to name another range, so I'll just call it, let me just say select. So it's always good to give a name that you're familiar with, so you're not confused even with the names you're given. And then the value for select would be the value of this cell here. So something like, so I'm going to reference that cell, and then my calculation will now be count if the range is what, I'll just call it range, and then my criteria will be select. So you should see the select IntelliSense pop up, and then I close the bracket. So I have 32. So we can also do this in this way. Please let me go back here, or we can do it in this other way. So you see how the let function can be very dynamic with our arrays. I hope we understand. If I change the value of the grade here, it will change also in the let function. That's how functional the let function can be. So instead of using count ifs, you can also use the let function. So just use this idea to look at data sets that can be very large and having even very long formulas. These are the methods of, or these are the ways you can use the let function. There are other methods too. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll be coming up with the next function, and that will be the lambda function. Thank you for watching. Please do well to subscribe to our channel.